Welcome to Season 5 of the podcast, Google's podcast about site reliability engineering and production software. This season, we are continuing our theme of friends and trends. It's all about what's coming up in the SRE space, from new technology to modernizing processes. And of course, the most important part is the friends we made along the way. So happy listening, and may all your incidents be novel.
You missed a page from Telebot.
Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. This is Google's podcast and I guess videocast about SRE and production engineering. And we're live in New York even. Amazing.
For the first time, we're recording in person.
That's right. It's pretty cool. I'm Steve. I've been here a bunch. Florian, you know as well. Florian's been here a bunch. We have a new friend. Who are you, new friend?
My name is Carla Geisser. I worked at Google as a site reliability engineer from 2004 until 2015-ish, mostly on storage systems. There's a quote from me in the SRE book. And now I run a company that does what we are calling crisis engineering. The company is called Aleph.
Cool. What is a crisis and how do you engineer it? What's going on with that?
So we made up this term because we needed a thing to call what we had done for our careers, including at Google, which was enter a situation full of ambiguity, full of circumstances that were surprising to people and perhaps information that was noisy.
Yeah.
And use a combination of management type skills and software engineering and systems engineering skills to find a way out of the maze. And we needed a word for that because that took me 30 seconds to say. And so we described it as crisis engineering.
That's interesting because what you just said to me somehow also seems to apply to like a regular quote unquote incident. So what makes a crisis then different from an incident as an SRE might know it?
The place that I draw the boundary is that an incident is a thing where there is probably some set of instructions you can pull off the shelf that is maybe a similar thing that has happened before, or even a full-on playbook because it happens often enough.
Yeah.
And you can, turn to page 37 in the manual and say, now I'm going to follow these steps, obviously with modifications because it's not going to be quite the same. But there is a playbook that exists typically for a thing that is an incident but not yet a crisis.
Cool. So an incident is something you either have a playbook or you could reasonably have a playbook, and for a crisis you couldn't.
Yes. And we have a taxonomy sort of for the elements that we think are necessary to be in a situation that is a crisis.
Yeah.
There are 5 of them. The first one is fundamental surprise, which is this is a thing that is a novel experience for everyone. And it has to be truly novel. So the place that this term kind of gets used most is actually in science fiction writing because it's a great setup for a science fiction novel, right?
Yeah.
Like your cat wakes you up one morning, that part's normal, and tells you that the Earth is about to be invaded and invites you onto their spaceship to evacuate.
That's novel.
That is fundamental surprise.
Got it. Yeah.
So fundamental surprise is one. Broken critical functions is another one. That one's the one we typically have in any crisis and in most incidents. Like something that is core to your business is not happening right now.
That's familiar.
That one's easy.
Yeah.
The other one is high visibility. So like people are watching the outcome of this thing. And that can be either an internal thing or an external thing, particularly inside a large organization. The thing you might start to experience is that every meeting becomes about this incident, even if it originally was not meant to be about this incident.
Yeah.
If the news media is involved, obviously that is definite high visibility. So that is sort of another criteria. A rigid deadline, like a real actual deadline. Holiday shopping season, streaming for the Super Bowl, launching a satellite, those are real deadlines. Internal tech company deadlines don't count.
They don't count. Okay, good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, those are fake and made up and they move all the time, as we know. So, rigid timeline. And then the final one is hard to talk about. It's what we call perception breakdown or a failure of sense making. Right. This is when the people are unable to produce a useful picture of what is going on because either the information they're getting is late, or it's noisy, or it's overwhelming, or different parts of the organization are seeing different things happening.
Yeah.
The simplest version is it works on my machine.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of perception breakdown.
Right.
And then, we go from there.
It feels like
bit like headless chicken syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels like fundamental surprise, and the last one seem quite related as well. Like in an organization who maybe thinks they understand production but actually doesn't. Is that a common thing that you've seen?
Yes. In particular we increasingly like to say that the core of modern civilization now has computers in it, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
But a lot of organizations have not yet admitted that to themselves. And so you get a lot of organizations, especially in government, where they're processing healthcare benefits or unemployment claims. And they haven't yet gotten to the place where they understand that the computer is actually controlling all the decisions. They still think there is a policy working group that can control what is happening. Right. And it can, but first you have to tell the computer what the policy working group decided.
Is it a matter of them not admitting to themselves, or could they actually be genuinely unaware?
It's often a little of both.
I know that we've seen this. So we work in like more of the cloud space, less of the government-y space, of course. But I think that we see a lot is the people in charge are the people who used to be doing the job. And so often they'll assume that the system is clearly just the same as it used to be, only bigger or something, whereas fundamentally it's far more complex, or something fundamentally is different about it. And so they'll attack the problem as if it's the old one, but in reality it's something totally different. Is that a similar kind of vibe?
Yes, and one of the kinds of perception breakdown you see is information that is out of date or stale. Yeah. And that is a version of that, where the people who think they have their hands on the controls are holding the controller from 5 iterations ago.
Right.
And so it's not actually connected to anything that drives anymore.
Right. Yeah, the example that we use a lot is like if you have a modern distributed system, but you're thinking about sort of a static, stack of things, like your responses to failure are very different. And also your demands of your expectations of this thing can't be expected to fail versus a distributed system, which is like, it's made to fail. Like it's okay to fail. That's the whole point of it. There's just, you're just looking through the wrong lens entirely. So that seems really common.
Yeah. A version of that we see a lot in our work with government is what volume of data is considered like too hard for a computer to deal with. And people often have a extremely low estimate of that because they're used to what will fit on a spreadsheet on their laptop. When in fact, reprocessing 10 million unemployment records might actually be very possible for the mainframe.
Right. Yeah.
Like you can just do that, but it's not inside people's belief of a way you could deal with the system.
Back in the olden days when the term big data was sort of becoming popular, I seem to remember there was this story of the 3 V's, wasn't it? Like volume, velocity, veracity, something like that. Does that ring a bell?
It sounds like a real thing. I'll believe you.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit. So this all came out of experiences that you all have had. So this is layer Aleph, did I say that right? And that came out of your work with what? Like, take it from there. Like, where did this come from?
So it came from our work initially on the healthcare.gov crisis, which at this point probably nobody remembers.
I remember.
You remember it? Okay. When the federal government launched a website to allow people to sign up for healthcare, and it did not work.
Yep.
And then Mikey built a team to help resolve that, which was a combination of managing contractors and then also debugging this hilariously complex distributed system.
Right. And there are videos of talks that came later, which kind of describe that whole thing. So we can link to those so people can review that, because it's part of the record. It's a good part of the story for sure.
Yeah, and even as a non-US citizen, I have memories of that, or I have I have heard of this.
The best part of that I recall is the monitoring system was CNN. I think that kind of tells the story of the first day. I think that one's
enough said.
Enough said. Yeah. So then what? Like, clearly time has passed since then.
Yes, time has passed. After that, we did a series of similar projects inside the federal government and then also with various state governments. Okay. And somewhere along the way, we formed this company, which I think is about 7 years old now. And we now sell this sort of technical crisis management incident response thing to anyone who wants to use it, which typically is often state governments. It's sometimes private companies. Who are encountering what we would call a planned crisis. Like the version of this that we did that I had a lot of fun on was a company, a very small startup that was about to be acquired. And they needed their systems to not fall over during the finalization of that acquisition contract. But they knew that there would be a big PR around it, and they knew that...
The date. That's the number 3,
I think.
Right?
Exactly. There was a date, and there was a clear consequence.
Heightened scrutiny.
Heightened scrutiny.
Attention.
Yeah. Visibility. Yeah.
And they...
High visibility,
yes. Definitely high visibility. And because they had been operating on a very small budget for a very long time, the set of people who actually knew how the systems worked was very small. Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't really anyone who knew whether it could scale, how it could scale, whether it would survive this upcoming increase in attention. And so we worked on that with them.
Maybe this is a silly question, but like, are the things that you end up fixing always technical or never technical? like I know the 3 of the 4 of you in the company, I've met at least 3 of you, and you're all former SREs. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the 4th one maybe also is too, but like, is it an SRE thing by nature, or is this just like a coincidence that you're here? You know, like.
I think the part of it that is SRE by nature is the ability to look at a very big system and start to connect the dots with no information. Yeah. And the system includes the people often.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work we do is...
Does it ever not?
It almost always includes
the people. This is a leading question. I mean, of course it includes the people.
It always includes the people.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work we end up doing is technical in that we are helping with visibility of the technical systems that exist.
Yeah.
So things like building database queries that tell you actually how fast is data flowing through the system and where are particular kinds of records getting stuck in this pipeline, which is often something there's a breakdown of perception. Different people in an organization will look at a complicated process like applying for unemployment benefits, and they'll say, well, clearly it's the people over there who are blocking all the applications.
Yeah.
And you can just look in the database and see where stuff is getting stuck, but nobody has.
Right.
Yeah.
So having the technical capabilities helps you uncover some of these problems, which may not even be technical to begin with, at least.
Yes.
And then maybe it's a coupling of other things down there as well.
So, a lot of the technical work we do is about exposing the full system to the people who can then make better decisions, I would say.
Right. It's all just software, as we like to say, right?
Yes, it is all just software.
That's all it is. Come on, it's not that hard, right?
And presumably this may be the first time that these people see that system end to end through this lens, right?
Almost always.
Yeah.
Like that is actually the value we are providing as part of the thing we call crisis engineering, is building them a very clear map of what is going on right now from the beginning to the end of whatever their process is.
I like to say that when I left Google, I left Google and came back at a point, and that was when I left Google I didn't have it. I worked basically from university to Google to somewhere else and then back again. And during that somewhere else is where I learned the phrase "stay in your lane." Like I had never heard that before. And like my response was, please do not tell an SRE to stay in their lane. Like this is like doesn't work in our brains. You know,
right.
This sounds kind of similar to that kind of concept.
SREs are looking left and right. They don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Instead, we're actually encouraged to look in other lanes. You know?
Yes. And I think that is a unique skill, especially in larger companies and larger organizations. And so that is a huge thing that we bring into the problem space. Plus the technical ability to look at a computer system and either say, this is good or this is a problem.
Gotcha.
Which a lot of the decision makers won't have that instantaneous reflex to be like, oh, this thing is actually fine, even though everyone's whining. They're whining for good reasons, but it's perfectly good computers in there. Gotcha. Versus this thing is a liability and we need to fix it in order to take the next step.
Gotcha. Are there like cases along the way that you can talk about more? Like examples of things where you saw like this isn't just a one-off, like this is a pattern that keeps happening? Or
I would say the pattern in government and to some degree in large corporations is everyone really, really wants to blame the oldest computer system they have for all of their problems. And they are frequently in the middle of some decade-long transition away from that thing, which is often a mainframe.
Yep.
And our attitude is like, the mainframe is actually fine. And what instead they have built is a stack of complexity where about every 5 years they take whatever is the hot new technology, build a few new things in that, and then get distracted and never complete that migration. So now they have basically one of each kind of technology that has ever been popular over the last 20 years.
Wow.
And that happens all the time.
Is it also that they keep building, like they don't want to change that old system and they keep building stuff around it to deal with the quirks of the old system? Because I had that exact experience at a previous job.
It's a little of, usually the place they have started is they have a grand modernization scheme where they are definitely going to replace the old thing.
Right.
And so then they start with maybe a little piece, if you're lucky. Or sometimes they start with the grand modernization plan and get about 60% of the way through. And then you just have a hodgepodge of stuff that's glued onto the side. And you still have the original system.
Right.
And now you have this other stuff. And we do it again and again and again. And so drilling through that complexity, I think, is also a skill that tends to coincide with people who describe themselves as SREs. Is we kind of don't care what kind of computer is in there, as long as we can follow a chain of events. And anyone can run TCP dump, anyone can look at a log file, doesn't matter who created the log file.
Right.
It's all just computers.
As long as we can reason about the system and we can
Yes.
understand it, then we don't care what the system is.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
So the type of people who watch or listen or whatever to this podcast video thingy that we do, tend to be SREs who don't work at Google or SRE-adjacent folk. So what should they do with these ideas? Is it once they go to work for some large federal government that needs trouble, or is it more applicable than that?
I think the most useful part of these ideas for anybody who's just coming to work and doing their job is figuring out if a crisis is actually happening. Because if a crisis is happening, you can do interesting and novel things, because leadership is going to be willing to they're going to be willing to break rules. They're going to be willing to move faster. They're going to be willing to approve exceptions. If you're in a real crisis using those criteria I described earlier. If you're not in a real crisis,
Yes, that's the fun one.
you just have to do your job like a normal person.
Yeah.
And you can be mad at everything that's going on. That is definitely going to be a crisis someday. But nothing special is going to happen until you hit that tipping point.
Right.
And so I think that is the both useful and also pragmatic and depressing advice we give to a lot of people, where they can see the sky about to fall. And they're like, if we just get everybody to care about it, we can prevent the sky from falling. And you can't.
So this is the
Right.
don't waste your time advice.
This is the don't waste your time advice. This is the, you can absolutely take notes and start to learn how the system works and build up your allies who will help you when the crisis actually happens.
Yeah.
But until you hit 3 of those 5 criteria, nobody's behavior is going to change.
Got it.
Right. But so you mentioned you hitting that tipping point. Who actually decides when it starts being a crisis, and who declares? Is there someone that declares the crisis?
Is there a crisis
or is
commander?
it? Yeah, exactly. Or is it just everyone instantly knows it's a crisis? How do you decide?
The way we decide is because we are external consultants.
Yeah.
Is somebody has decided to pay the 4 of us to come help them,
Right. Okay.
and that is
That's
enough of a signal.
straightforward criteria.
Well, it's interesting because we often have to talk to clients about this, about their willingness to do that and what it will entail once we start working with them. So that's our signal. Within an organization, there has to be someone who is, frankly, scared enough
Yeah.
to be willing to break rules. And so you can nudge them using the information you have, but ultimately, someone who has the levers on power needs to
Yeah.
be willing to do something new.
So once you are engaged, by definition, it's already in a crisis state, or
Close enough that people are willing to take and to do something new and interesting.
I presume you learned these rules by when it didn't work, right? You got engaged and you're it's not moving, or we keep getting frozen out, or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of back computed the crisis criteria
Right.
from the experience of places where someone said, this is really important, we definitely need to do something. And we were like, okay, we will definitely help you do something. And then nothing changed.
Okay, so this is a good way to determine if it's worth continuing or not, kind of thing. But we're not trying to encourage people for if you have 2 out of 3, just cause the 3rd or the 4th one to necessarily. I don't know.
I personally do not like that approach. I consider it to be kind of a dark art.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
I suspect you all and many people listening to this have worked for leadership who is willing to create a crisis for their own ends. A version that I have seen actually be successful is we're moving everything to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
We have ended our contract with our data center provider 2 years from now.
You just made a hard deadline.
Congratulations, you have a hard deadline.
We made one. Great.
And sure, you could extend that contract, but it's going to cost, 4 times as much.
Right.
I don't know if that works, but it's definitely a thing that people try to do to get their migrations to go faster.
Yeah. Motivation.
Right.
Okay. Well, this is really good. I think this also calls in the phrase "never waste a good crisis." Similar kind of thing.
Yes.
I hope you put that on all your literature as you go forward. I'm sure I'm not the first person to suggest that.
No, I mean, a upside down version of the way we think about this is like, great, you shouldn't waste a good crisis. So in that moment, what exactly are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the rest of the story, which we are not talking about right in this moment. But maybe Mikey can fill you in on part 2.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good.
It's also a bit like when you transition from somebody should do something, we must do something right now
Yes.
kind of moment. Yeah.
And usually we must do something right now because of that taxonomy I described is everybody gets that feeling at roughly the same time because it becomes impossible to ignore.
So I found the example interesting that you mentioned with like, we have this migration to the cloud and then we cancel the contract with our DC provider. Are you saying that this is basically, at this point, it becomes a manufactured crisis?
I mean, it is a management technique that senior leaders definitely try to get the migration to move faster. And it can become a manufactured crisis. I think the risk there is that everybody saw you do it. And so it might work once and then it burns any trust with the people in leadership after that.
But people will do that for other reasons as well, which spins off this thing, which we now have a word for, which is it is a crisis, due to the fact that it was already visible. Now there's this deadline, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we're almost at time. Thank you very much, Carla, for coming all the way over here from part of New York to another part of New York. It was fun. We had trouble finding this studio in a maze full of elevators. So if you're ever in New York, there are so many elevators in this town. I cannot believe it. It's pretty amazing. Is there any extra things you want to say to the world, the audience, about what to focus on or how to follow you on Strava or anything weird like that?
I guess just one final thought for this like crisis thing is there's a bunch of crises that are going to happen that you can predict. And you should just assume that you will have a brief suspension of the rules of engagement during that moment. So organizations that do the holiday shopping season, which they might be starting to prepare for now.
They better do.
They better do it right now. Like that is all of the circumstances of crisis.
Yeah.
And you know they're going to happen.
Every year.
Yes, exactly.
And frequently,
a
your
regular cadence.
leadership will write you sort of a ticket in advance that says you are allowed to enforce and break the following rules in order to hit this, special time of the year.
Yeah.
So I think that is a useful thing to rely on. When we say crisis, people get kind of spun up that like it's definitely surprising or it's definitely big and newsworthy. And sometimes it's just an alignment of circumstances that is going to happen, but you should, use that alignment of circumstances.
Does it then actually fit the novelty criteria?
Doesn't have to, right?
Okay.
You only need most of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Got you. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's definitely not novel, but it's high visibility, definitely
Tight
deadline, and probably going to cause a breakdown in understanding of how your system works. Pretty likely. And risk of broken core functions also always there. So you got most of them.
I have a random question, and then we can finally close. I already said goodbye. Do you think there are well-functioning companies that just don't have crises, like on the reg? Or is this a pervasive thing? Like, does everyone come across this? They just already have this capability in-house, potentially, without calling it what they're calling it.
So I guess, could there be a company that cannot hit enough of the criteria? Is that what you're saying?
Or they just regularly handle it, right?
Right. Okay.
I think my take, and you'll have to ask Mikey, is that this is actually part of the cycle of change inside of an organization. You have to go through these moments periodically for anything substantive to change. And
if you're not having crises, maybe you're not something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think basically the big stuff requires this set of circumstances and a set of brief suspension of normal behavior in order to then get to a new place.
Gotcha.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, the end.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice talking to you.
You too.
You've been listening to The Podcast, Google's podcast on site reliability engineering. Visit us on the web at sre.google, where you can find books, papers, workshops, videos, and more about SRE. This season is brought to you by our hosts, Jordan Greenberg, Steve McGee, Florian Rathgeber, and Matt Siegler, with contributions from many SREs behind the scenes. The podcast is produced by Paul Guglielmino and Salim Virji. The podcast theme is Telebot by Javi Beltran and Jordan Greenberg.